What it do, anime crew? Hey man, listen, today I'm going to be ranting about 28 Years Later, which is a movie I watched a couple nights ago. I saw it in theaters pretty much the night it came out or the night after. I'm not really sure which one, but it was pretty good. I didn't love it a lot, but I enjoyed it enough to where there was no point in the movie where I was just waiting for it to end. I thought that the first half was very, very strong, and the second half was whatever. And it's interesting because my friend who I went with thought that the first half was whatever, and the second half was really strong, and that it really started to pick up then. And I think, despite it seeming like we have the exact opposite opinion, it really just reflects a bit of a weird tone shift towards the middle of the movie that didn't really click for either of us. And whichever version of the story or whichever tone of the story we preferred varied slightly, but the point is just that I think we both would have liked for it to go deeper into one of those two types of storytelling, and it just kind of didn't. There was also a scene at the end where it just all of a sudden becomes like a weird, like, action comedy style badass weird zombie action that's not gritty or realistic at all. And it was just like clear that the director wanted to throw something like that in and didn't overly care about making sure it fits the tone or into the narrative whatsoever, which I kind of respect, but at the same time, there's no saying it wasn't clunky. And that's sort of how I describe most of my criticisms of this movie, is that it was a bit clunky. I vastly prefer the first half, though, because the first half was about this, zombie-ridden society, which has this sort of town on an island which is safe and quarantined from the zombies, but then the entire mainland is just swarming with them. And it's about this dad who takes his kid zombie hunting, effectively, like glory hunting. This is going to be like one of the youngest kids to ever go on this island and shoot and kill zombies. Why? Because it's a coming of age ritual, becoming a man, something dumb, something weird. And basically they go over there and it is everything that could go wrong goes wrong. But, at the same time, it should have been expected that going on a zombie-infested land with your 12-year-old son is not like a great idea, and things might go wrong. But they both make it back in one piece. And basically, while they're there, the directing does a really good job communicating, and just the narrative in general does a really good job of communicating the vulnerability of it, the terror of war, because it's it's one of those zombie stories. It's a bit of an allegory for war. Many zombie stories are allegorical for slavery, some for war, some for less literal forms of slavery, like Zom 100, corporate slaves, stuff like that. There's a lot of things that zombies often represent, but one of the more common ones is war, which is sort of what they're mostly representative of here. And that they get back, and the dad is telling these stories about how his kid is the giant slayer, and all of these like super glorious feats that just serve to big them up as much as possible. But it's so sharply contrasted by what it was actually like when they were on the island. They felt small, they felt vulnerable, panicked, like anything could go wrong at any moment. It was traumatizing and humbling. And then basically they get back from this freaking war zone, and it seems that the only way to make it all seem worth it is for them to be able to brag about it at the end. At least that's how I kind of see it. But the dad's over here bragging, and the kid's like, this doesn't feel right. I don't want to boast to all these people about how much of a badass I am, when really all that did was made me feel so small and vulnerable and insignificant and panicked. There's this fucking amazing scene that was apparently in the trailer of this poem, I believe, made by somebody who was in some war, looked like World War II, and it was basically the audio for the scene when they were first arriving onto this zombie-ridden mainland. And I don't remember all of the words, but it's like basically somebody talking about their time in the war, and they mention the boots going up and down again. There is no discharge in the war. Going up and down again. Boots going up and down again. There is no discharge in the war. And he just keeps repeating boots going up and down again, going up and down again. And it's like he's focusing on the rhythmic footsteps of the army as sort of a way to keep himself sane. He's like, keep me from going lunatic. Boots, 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 going up and down again, going up and down again. Don't think about what's in front of you. You know, like there's just that kind of a rhythmic thing where it's like I'm trying to keep myself from leaving my body and ceasing to be a person at all. Like I'm trying to stop myself from losing my mind in this extreme pressure and chaos, and I'm just going to put my head down and think of the boots going up and down, going up and down. And it's this really, really, really powerful poem that's sort of as they're arriving on here. And then, you know, they get back and they're like, you know, we're such or the dad really is like, oh, we were such badasses. You should have seen this kid out there. And it's like, there's no point in doing this. They're glory hunting. This dad is just trying to like, I don't even really know what his motive is in all of this, but he's just trying to like big himself up as like the super cool guy and then go have an affair with his wife. And then the second half, which is sort of a character dynamic that I found interesting. You know, it's obviously very toxic and dysfunctional, but it's something that I found to have a little bit of an interesting parallel to the real world with a lot of culture that there is of, you know, of course, giving all the respect to and bigging up veterans when they get back, which is something that totally makes sense to do. But it's like, it's like there's so many times it's like such a horrible job. It's such a horrible thing that people feel they have to do, where it's like, yeah, that's sort of the least you can do to make it worth it. But then when it comes to stuff like this, it's just stolen valor, really. It's just like talking about stuff that they didn't have to be doing in the first place. And I think I see a lot of people who go through very intense things and they sort of just start bragging about them all the time. And it just feels a little bit dishonest sometimes. It's like, you did this just for the sake of bragging when really there's no way it could have had anything but the opposite effect on you, if that makes any sense. But the second half was basically this kid, and they saw a fire while they were on the island, and the dad's like, that's a deranged doctor. He's not okay anymore. He's probably a zombie himself. But the kid's mom has some sort of unknown disease that they're trying to figure out. And so the kid sneaks out and takes his mom with him to go meet this doctor and maybe get a diagnosis. Turns out the mom has cancer, and then they sort of pivot into the oftentimes emphasized trope in zombie media of, hey, you have to accept the death and truly survive. You can't just, or truly live. You can't just be surviving like these brainless zombies. You have to embrace death and move forward with the ones you love, and find peace and society and closure in the world after this zombie apocalypse with the living people that you do know, knowing that they may be gone someday, you know. That memento mori sort of imagery. Not imagery, sort of theming. The one part I really did like about the ending was some of the imagery with the set design. There's this giant pile of skulls, and I mean, I'll just get around to it. There was like a 8.5-inch soft prosthetic penis on one of the zombies, and he was like full sprinting. It was flopping around everywhere. I can't believe it. I was there with my friend, and he somehow didn't hear this, but when it was first shown in the movie, there was this guy in the theater who went, "Ooh, glizzy," which was fucking hilarious to me. But, you know, I mean, it was really strong imagery of like, oh, what, they're really doing that? Really uncomfortable. Why is this on the screen? Hey, get this off the screen. Why? It's just kind of gross and uncomfortable. And it was a bit thematically relevant because it was taking place after they found out that the zombies were reproducing. Very weird movie. It's a very weird movie. It goes through a lot of tone shifts. I especially like the directing towards the beginning because it was very spastic and panicked, and it would speed up and slow down and speed up and slow down, and it would go infrared and, you know, do all these like weird, super jarring techniques that sold the sheer chaos and panic of these zombies, which I thought, you know, played really well into the juxtaposition between the larger than life bragging afterwards and the reality of how being there made them feel so, you know, small. And, you know, I'm basically repeating myself at this point, but I found the first half very compelling from a directorial and narrative and character standpoint. The second half was okay. It's not like the movie just became shit out of nowhere, but there was a bit of a weird tone shift towards the middle where it got, in my opinion, a little bit, I can't say more serious, but maybe less satirical. It just started to become a little bit more rote to me. Like I just didn't find that it was doing things as uniquely anymore. And then at the end, it did stuff super uniquely, and I didn't really love that either. I would overall say it's a good movie. I definitely enjoyed it, and it was doing more interesting things than most movies that you go out and see, but it didn't really land for me, like, perfectly. But I don't know. I liked it. I could tell there was a lot of passion put into it. There's some really cool stuff if you look into how the directing was done, how it was done on like this giant fucking panel of iPhones, which definitely adds the aesthetic. Auteur director, but yeah, movie was pretty good.